questions before we begin here. So first off, how long have you been playing Overwatch for?
Off on 2 years. I've been getting more into it this year though.
Okay, and then let's say like the past 2 weeks or so, how often we've been playing the game?
Pretty much every day.
Okay, every day. And then the final question for you is, do you have any questions for me before we begin?
No.
All right, well then we can just pretty much go ahead and get started here then, and I'll just be a minute or so while I'm looking for something to talk about.
Okay.
Use your heads out there. We'll get through this.
All right, so already just noticing a couple of abilities just tossed in there. Um, and there's nothing wrong with using them off a cooldown. Typically, that's what I will recommend to people is to use them as often as possible. Though we do want to be careful when we're throwing them in that we're actually
Attackers
trying to
incoming.
aim them and try to get them around things such as like a Reinhardt shield. That we're not just kind of chucking it in there, but instead we're trying to intentionally get it around them. So
Use your heads
here,
out there.
especially with like a
We'll
nade,
get
for
through
example, if
this.
we see Reinhardt shield up and we have no reason to believe he's going to drop it anytime soon, we might want to do something to get it around the shield. So we might go more in depth on this, but like one easy way that you can just think of this is like maybe we can come up here to the high ground, which might give you an angle like this where you can just very easily get a nade in. So that is a type of thing that you can be looking for, and we'll go in more in depth on it as we see fit here.
Okay.
And that way it's not just like going into a shield and doing nothing.
Right.
Get back in the fight.
Make sure we're paying attention to the people on the front line and people taking damage, and just be careful about them, as we want to be. They're going to be the people who are taking the most damage because they're on the front line, especially like the tanks. So we just have to make sure we're keeping an eye on them so we can be faster to react to the diva, especially here when like all of these guys are full HP. Pretty much for the most part, we want to make sure we're paying careful attention to the
Get
diva so
back
that
in the
we're
fight.
able to look at her. So here, all these guys that we're looking at currently are all down what, like 50 HP, but now Diva is down 200, and she's also being shot at by a bunch of people. So we just want to make sure we're being aware of her and pay attention to her health bar, because we just stay on them way too long, and then Diva gets demeched as a result.
Right.
Okay. Um, Probably not a necessary heal nade, right? So heal nades are only going to be needed in certain instances. Heal nades are needed specifically when people need burst healing. So when they're when they're low or in danger and they need to be healed up extra fast. Healing nade is going to be useful for that because you get two different sources of healing. You get your regular healing and the heal nade, and then also the heal nade will buff the amount of healing they get. You can also use it if you're like out of ammo and someone needs healing fast, or if you're healing a big group of people. But at the moment, right, we can look at some health bars here, and like nobody's in danger, no one needs healing. So ultimately, this nade just gets pretty much wasted. Whereas you probably could use that aggressively as an anti and get a lot more value out of it. So just make sure we're paying attention to health bars and danger levels of people, and then that's just a wasted ability right there.
Okay.
Okay, another ability is just tossing the shields. Anna's very ability based. A lot of her, a lot of her carrying potential comes down to how are you using your abilities, and that's how you're able to do a lot of things on Anna. Yet so far we just have wasted ability after ability, where like so far we've used four, and all four of them have done pretty much absolutely nothing. So we just want to make sure we're putting a lot more effort and thought into how we're using our abilities, and paying attention to shields here, because here we just we see the shield standing still, and then we just decide to shoot it at a shield, right? Like the bubble's been there for the past like 5 seconds, right? It's still there, and we fire at the bubble anyways, even though we see bubbles up. So we want to make sure we're intentionally thinking about the shields that can block it, and make sure we're not just tossing abilities into shields, because then it just gets blocked, and then it doesn't do anything there.
Take your
Okay.
medicine. Heal up.
Okay, pretty decent nade. Though let's take one more look at that. So, besides that, if we wanted to go for more than just monkey, we'd have a perfect opportunity for that here. If we tossed in a nade, we could probably get these three people, which is going to be a higher value than getting one single purple. Just keeping in mind that more is usually gonna be better in terms of yeah, how many purples you're getting and how many what are nades doing. So just pay attention to opportunities like this where these guys don't have a shield all clumped up right next to each other. That'd probably be a pretty good opportunity to go for a anti-nade and then therefore get a lot of value out of it. Though this one on the monkey isn't too terrible because we do get monkey and our McCree from it.
It's just a scratch. You'll be fine.
Okay, nice sleep. So those two abilities did actually connect this time.
Die Fida.
Maybe not a necessary need just because, first off, don't spend too much time shooting it at the wall. It's not really going to do very much. You're not going to break it in time as Ana, but you're better off just reloading. Secondly, paying attention to the diva, as there we weren't looking around us and we kind of didn't notice that she was low until right here. And then finally, we do throw a nade at her when it probably isn't necessary because she still has some health left. She has like 250. She's she's not really in line of sight of very many people, and she's about to get out of line of sight. So at the moment, she's not in danger. When someone's not in danger, they don't need the nade, right? So we can do an exercise like this where we go, okay, somebody might be 1 HP and critical in this room, but are they in danger if they're over here?
No.
Probably not really, yeah. So that means that a nade might not be necessary in this instance where you can just normal heal them up. So if Diva's not in danger here, probably don't need the nade when we could just heal her up normally and then have the nade for when you actually need it. So just paying attention to situations like that.
Die Fida.
Gotcha.
Thanks. You're covered.
I need healing.
Okay, decent tracking there. Okay, so here we just don't have an angle on these guys. Okay, so let's say a couple things here. So first off, make sure that we're rotating to the best positioning possible in between fights. Currently, that would probably be on the back high ground behind us. So, why high grounds are good for you? So, high grounds are going to be very, very good for you because from high grounds we have a lot of we have cover usage. So all of high grounds act as cover usage. So think, for example, our team, they can see us. Now they can't. We crouch, same thing, right? They can't see us anymore. So all of high ground acts as cover usage, which means that we have additional survivability. On top of that, most characters in the game can't just get up to you instantly, and therefore that adds an additional layer of survivability. So think Reinhardt, McCree, Ana, Moira, and then all those characters can't just instantly get up to you. And then the only characters that can are Monkey and Mei, and then they would need to use abilities, right? So that gives you an additional layer of survivability. And then thirdly, high grounds give you a ton of visibility. We can see a lot more from up on high grounds. We can see over here, down main, we can see this way, we can see up top on this high ground, we can see over here, we can see all of this high ground. But if we're sitting in our current spot, okay, well now we can't see over there. We can't see any of that high ground. We can't see any of this high ground, right? So we have a lot more, and then we can't see anything down main. So we have a lot more limited visibility, and then therefore we're not able to sleep and nade and heal and do our stuff as efficiently. So high grounds are going to be very good positioning, and in between fights when we have good 15 seconds here to rotate, we should probably just be taking this time to go up to the high ground, take positioning up here, and then that way maybe we're not struggling to heal the Doomfist. Now let's say, okay, we end up in this bad positioning. Sometimes you're going to make the mistake. Well, now how do we go about this? If Doomfist is out of your line of sight and you can't do anything to help him, don't attempt to do so, right? You're not always going to be able to help everybody. So think, for example, right, if you had like a Doomfist all the way over here who you saw was critical through the wall, if he's out of your line of sight and he's nowhere near you, you can't do anything to help him, so don't even try, right? So in this instance, we spend a lot of time trying to help out the Doomfist when we just can't from our angle. Now, okay, we can from this angle because now we can see both of them just fine, but we can't from the angle we're currently at, which means that we just have to let him do his thing and focus on the people we can heal. Because what we end up doing is we chuck in a nade. We spend a good 5 seconds staring up there. We chuck in a nade, don't hit anybody with it, it just goes sailing past, and then we spend a lot of time healing the Doomfist up, a lot more time than is necessary, and in that time we're just being melted by the monkey, right? In that time we're dying. So nade probably could have been a lot more useful in keeping ourselves alive. And then also we react very, very slowly to the monkey being on top of us. It would prioritize staying alive over healing somebody else, right? It's better that you stay alive because now you can heal other people, right? Like if you stay alive, you can do things as well as heal up other teammates, whereas Doomfist dies, that's okay. It's not preferable, but it's okay. So prioritize keeping yourself alive first and then doing other things and healing second. Here we don't react to the monkey on top of us until we're dead. So we wanted to turn around faster. There we could have slept him much, much sooner. And we also had a nade we could have maybe naded ourselves and him with, which would have kept us alive as well. And overall, we just spent way too much time trying to heal this Doomfist when we could have been doing other things.
What a...
Group up.
Okay. Make sure you're not walking back into fights where you've already lost them. So here we don't have teammates with us, right? So currently we have 2 people. It's just us and Diva's, all the way in their back line. And then versus us two is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. So it is a 5v2 currently. Um, that is a lost fight, right? You're essentially walking into a fight already going, let's lose this. So probably don't want to be doing this because this could end up getting us staggered, such as if Monkey leaped after us, or if McCree just hits 2 headshots on you. This could very easily end up killing you when we didn't really get any benefit out of peeking like that. It didn't really
Someone
do
get that
anything for
payload
us.
moving.
So I mean, we back up anyways, but there's no reason to go in the first place. So pay attention to how many people you have in the fight. You can see them through walls. If you don't have any teammates alive, don't walk in.
I'm in the
Yeah.
ring.
Now we do have a nano here, so let's see what we do with it.
Shukran.
Probably not needed that we drop from high ground. I think this high ground positioning is fine. Don't drop if it's not needed. We could see these guys perfectly fine from up here, so there wasn't any reason to drop from the high ground.
Shukran. Very well. Get back in the fight.
Okay, let's see, what are we gonna do with Nano? Okay, so we end up whiffing our nade again. Okay, make sure there's 3 different things that can get in the way of our nades, right? And sleeps. I guess nades and then sleeps, only 2 of them, right? So nades, you have shields that can get in the way. You have teammates that can get in the way, and then you have enemy like tanks, for example, who can get in the way of it hitting other people, right? And then you have specific tanking abilities that can stop it, and walls. But those are the main things, right? Sleeps, you can have tanking abilities, shields, and then you can also have like hitting walls on accident, right? Those are all the things that can block it. Make sure we're intentionally thinking about these things while we're throwing our nades. So here, when we're throwing our nade, I think we're trying to hit the monkey with it, but we end up hitting our McCree instead. So we want to make sure that when we're throwing it, we're watching for the
Yeah.
McCree to be in front of us, and instead we're moving further to the left before we're throwing the nade, so that he doesn't just eat it from in front of us. So watch for our teammates, make sure moving to the side of them, because it's a very easy way to get around them with our nades, and then that way we're not ending up putting on the wrong person.
Take your medicine. Take your medicine.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Make sure that we're not reloading when we could still be healing. Like Zen, for example, here is out in the open and is being shot at, and he needs healing. Instead, we reload here when he is critical. Right, we end up reloading there where maybe we could have been healing him, but besides that, not much.
Die, Fida.
Okay, there we needed the self healing, so that's a good nade.
My ultimate is ready. Get in there, and I will boost you. Go. I see you.
Special attack. All systems checked out.
Your power. Get in there.
Okay. Make sure when you're going for the nano on the Doomfist that it's when he's going in, not getting out. So we want to be nanoing him right as he's doing this right here.
I was communicating with him right here.
Okay.
He was he's about to go in this next clip.
All right. So after he ults is what you're saying. So if you're communicating with him, I would just say nano him right now, right as he's engaging, not after he has engaged, because then he gets out, he uses all of his abilities. Because if we nanoed him here, we'd get 3 abilities we can nano him with, right? We have the slam, uppercut, and punch, but we nano him after he's used all 3, which means that he has to ult and then get him all back. So it's just using it earlier rather than later there.
Gotcha.
Whoa, massive. Okay, so now we did get the nano on him, and he did ult, so that did work out really well.
Die, Fida.
And nothing's going to stop. Unacceptable. I require aid.
Healing in hand.
Unnecessary anti or
Securing the
heal
payload.
nade on our diva.
My
So
apologies.
when it comes to nades, just keep in mind that most of them we are looking to be using for anti-nades, right? When it comes to them, right, we're trying to use and look for anti-nades for most of them, and then as needed, we throw them out as healing nades, right? So that means that it's healing nades are going to be needed around like 40% of the time ish, but we're never actively looking for the healing nades because we don't dictate when people need healing. They take damage and then that's when they need healing. So therefore, we want to be looking for active anti-nades all the time and then only healing if it comes up, right? Whereas here, a lot of the times it's looking more like 70-30, where we're healing nading 70% of the time, and then anti-nading 30% of the time. We want to make it more so like 60-40 and getting more anti-nades out because anti-nade is a very very powerful ability and it's on a cooldown. A 6-man anti-nade is probably more powerful than a nano boost in most situations, and then therefore, and it's also on a cooldown, and therefore we want to make sure we're actively looking for anti-nades as often as possible, whereas here we're not really looking for it too often.
Ahlan, you're going to be okay.
And then when we do throw it in, it just ends up getting hit by hit by a shield and then blocked. So we want to make sure we're actively watching for those and trying to make sure we're dodging them out.
Yeah.
Nim.
Right, like another missed nade too. So the success rate ends up being very low out of all the ones that we throw in there.
You'll be fine.
Another sleep in the shield.
Down.
Now we get hacked. Try to avoid standing still as best as possible. Most of the time, you're going to want to make sure you're AD strafing. So we're just going left, right, left, right, left, right. It can be you can mix it up and do left, left, right, right. Whatever. It doesn't have to be exactly left, right, left, right. But you want to make sure you're not standing still because that way you're not getting shot at very easily. Whereas it becomes very easy to headshot you when you're standing still.
Right.
Down.
Now we're just missing a lot of our shots at the moment.
Walk it off.
Watch our health bar here. We throw a heal nade to heal ourselves up when we are 200 HP. Right? So we throw the heal nade when we're already full HP. Watch our health bar. That's part of awareness, right? Of paying attention to our environment. Okay. We also are spending a lot of time on this Sombra, and then in that time we lose like our Doomfist, for example, who we probably could be healing if we're paying attention down main and we're helping out down main. So keep in mind that it's not our job. Sombra's not an immediate threat at the moment, and it's not our job to kill her, right? That's more so on the other people. So, whereas it is our job to be the support. It's our job is to heal. So therefore, it is our fault when Doomfist. It's not our fault if Sombra lives. It is our fault if Doomfist dies, right? So we want to make sure we're paying attention to Doomfist. Whereas here, it's not an issue if Sombra's on top of us, but here she hasn't really been a threat to us since like after we've been 200 HP for a long while here. So in this instance, we want to make sure we're paying attention to Doomfist so that he doesn't end up dying here.
Thanks.
Gotcha.
Take your medicine.
Suiting up. Game on.
Nano boost is charging.
Understood.
Die feeder.
Maybe another instance where it wasn't super necessary when we could just normal heal.
Feeling powerful.
This will only hurt for a bit.
Prioritize the healing over the damage, right? Healing comes first, damage comes second on a support character. So we damage whenever healing is not needed, and then we heal when healing is needed, right? So that means here at the moment, healing is needed on Soldier because he's being Tesla'd by a nanoed monkey. Yet here we're damaging the monkey instead of healing the Soldier, whereas Soldier's critical HP, right? As well as the fact that while we're throwing a nade, probably try, instead of throwing it straight at the monkey, we want to be throwing it in between as many people as we can get. So instead you're never going to want to chuck a nade straight at somebody. You want to chuck it in the feet between as many people as possible. Because if we hit right here, for instance, now that hits Soldier and monkey instead of just the monkey, and then therefore we get a lot more value. We get 2 times the amount of value out of that, right? Whereas here we chuck it straight at the monkey, and then Soldier ends up dying,
This will
right?
only
Even if we
hurt for a bit.
got monkey, with a heal and with a nade and a sleep, we also let soldier die there, which puts us down a person. Make
Yeah.
sure we're not standing still, because once again, we're just kind of chilling there, standing still. Not a good habit to be in, so make sure we're moving around. It's very hard to hit someone, or it's a lot more difficult to hit someone who's moving around. This is, real life science mixed in with game knowledge, right? It's the type of thing that you'd have if you have an active shooter IRL. Is you zigzag, right? You don't just stand still or walk in a straight line somewhere. You're gonna move left, right, make sure you're a hard target to hit. In the same way in Overwatch, if you're standing still, you're going to get shot at and killed very, very easily, because they can just line up a shot super easy. But if you're moving around, now you become a lot harder of a target to hit, and therefore you want to make sure you're moving around, not just sitting on cart. Whereas a lot of the time here, we end up just sitting still on cart,
Nano boost is ready.
and
Get
therefore
in
if we
there.
die here, oh no, we don't end up dying there. Okay. Nade into shield. We'll talk about how we can look to negate some of that. Nice sleep. Sleep actually seems to maybe be having a slightly higher success. They're having pretty similar success rates. Okay, so we do get 2 kills.
Healing in half.
Nade didn't really do a ton there.
Get over here.
We'll talk a little bit on stuff in a moment, I think.
Go. I keep you here. Ultimate heat. Get in there.
Now that nade was really good, but potentially there we could also sleep instead of backing up. So here, when Reinhardt lands the shatter, instead of continuing to back up, move forwards and sleep him. That way we can stop him from finishing off these kills, and we can also nade from a better angle. Here we back up, and then that means that he ends up getting the kill on the diva, which we could have potentially stopped there with the sleep. Besides that, good ability usage afterwards.
I need it.
Oh, so let's talk about some stuff, about some positioning things. So we're at 5 minutes and 52 seconds. So hopefully I'll remember that one, or you can remember it for me. So let's talk about some positioning in terms of how Ana wants to operate. So when it comes to Ana, she has some specific positioning that she likes to use that's different from other characters, though pretty similar to other supports. Now, let's check off some of these boxes here. And Ana has 3 main check boxes she looks to check off while she's going throughout her positioning. Okay. Number 1 is, can I see my team? Of course, you need to be able to see your team. So far, we've been doing a decent job of this, but then also there's been instances where we aren't checking off these boxes, such as not positioning on the high ground where we could see the Doomfist, or not really looking around for our team. So just make sure we're doing that. But then, so the number 2 as well, I don't think is a major problem for us, though maybe a little bit, is making sure the enemy team can't see us, right? So if we're just regular, my words aren't working, sorry. If we're just regularly healing up our teammates here, right, there's no reason for the enemy team to be able to see us, because if they're looking at us here, then they can just shoot us for free when there's no reason why they should be able to do that, when we could just do something like this. Well, now they can't shoot at us. Well, we can heal the exact same and get the same amount of value, but now we're not going to get sniped and headshot and killed, right? Or taking unnecessary damage. So we want to make sure we're doing this anytime we're just normally healing, and then if we are sleeping or nading or shooting, then we can peek and shoot it and look at them, right? Thirdly, this is one of the bigger ones to work on here, and that is, do we have angles in which we can land nades and sleeps? And to be specific, that would be off angles. So, are you familiar with the term off angling?
Yeah.
Yeah. So an off angle, right, just to reiterate then, is taking a different angle from the main angle, right? If the enemy team's there, our team's here, this is the main angle, right? If we're trying to chuck an aid through this, we have to get through 5 teammates, shields, tanking abilities, and tanks, and then to get to their back line or to get to the middle of their team. Whereas that's going to be very, very tough, and we have seen within our gameplay that we just end up hitting shields and our teammates and tanks a ton, and then it doesn't really do very much, right? Whereas if we did something like this, right now we've just gotten past our team, past the shields and abilities, and past the tanks, and then we can get straight into their backline with a nade, right? Very easy, very safe, very fast. That's an off angle, right? Another example would be if enemy team is there, our team is here, right? They're fighting here. We can just take a couple seconds to run up to the high ground real quick. Now this is very fast, very safe, and we can get over get around their shields, right? Around everything, and just get immediately into their backline, right? All of high ground's acts as off angles as long as you are above them, not in front of them. Like if they're over there, then it's not really an off angle, right? You don't really see a lot of that, and then therefore we're not really landing nades super effectively, so make sure we're looking to do that more often. Now, some other things, make sure we're not flanking, as there is a difference between off-angling and flanking. A flank would be if, main angle right here, right, teams, and then we decide to go all the way around, Well, flanks take much longer and a lot of times are more dangerous. So now in this time, our teammates are dying and losing the fight, and we can't heal them from here. And this is also much more dangerous, and they're going to turn around to kill us. And we're really not going to get. It's not even going to do as much for us as if we just took the off angle. So don't go for flanks. Do go for off angles. Are you familiar with Anna's scope nade tech at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can scope in and toss a nade in from that. Did you watch one of my YouTube videos,
This
or
one
did you
only
just know
hurt
about
for
that
a
one?
minute.
I've seen it a million
A
times.
million times too. Interesting.
It's quite
I didn't.
fine.
Most people don't know that one, and then I honestly I didn't even know that until
A
I stopped
lot of
maining
people
Anna.
had a
I peaked like 4400 with her, and then I didn't know about that one until like probably a year after that point, or probably a couple months. So in any
Hmm.
case, that's just a couple things there in Anna. Then besides that, I feel like there's one other positioning thing we're going to talk about. Also, being closer to your team. As a couple times I've noticed that we've been a little bit far back. Anna's positioning and where she likes to be positioning is a mid-range again, close range to your team, mid-range against the enemy team, right?
Right.
Is how she likes to be positioned. A lot of players will think that she likes to be played as a sniper and very, very far back, whereas this isn't very true. Like, if yes, you can theoretically do the exact same shots from this distance,
unique
but
about the
it's also
civilians.
going to be the big issue is that you have two abilities that are both projectiles, and this means that it's going to be very, very difficult for you to actually land these abilities at this distance because of the nature of how projectiles work. Whereas if we get a lot closer now, we're able to do these a little bit better. So position yourself close to your team and then kind of a medium distance away from the enemy team. Whereas sometimes in our gameplay, like for instance, right as we died, we had backed off from our team, and then that made it very easy for Samra to
Next
see us and
time.
shoot at us. As well as the fact that finally, I guess we get into the just general positioning, and we'll go over this real quick, is
A
just
lot of
how
people
general
had a
positioning works. And that is, if we're standing right here, and the enemy team's standing over there, right, and they're all looking at us and shooting at us, it takes us 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover, right? So now from here, they can't shoot at us, right? We're safe. But in that time it took us to walk there, we died, right? Um, Whereas if we're right here, now it takes us half a second to get behind cover, which is 6 times faster than what it took us previously, right? Which means that now we have a much greater chance of being able to stay alive, right? So therefore, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover. Whereas when we saw in our last death against Sombra, the reason why we died was because first off, we had an absence of cover, and then secondly, we had an absence of teammates around us. We kind of ran off on our own, and then therefore we didn't have any team support because we ran off on our own, right? There's
Gotcha.
lots of different types of cover, right? We can use slopes, we can use pillars in between shots when we're reloading, right? When we don't want enemies to be able to see us, right? When we have corners that do the same thing. Also, apologies, there's thunderstorming outside, so there's might be some booming in my background here. Um, we also have like random objects we find lying around. We can use the payload like this, right? We have pillar, corner, doorway, corner, and then as we discussed, high ground as well. So there's a lot of the main things there on Ana. So we'll go back and get into where we're at. So we were on Route 66, I think.
Traveling to Route Ready for battle.
So I just noticed that this is a quick play game. Do you typically play quick play or competitive?
I've been playing competitive with like a group of friends, but like we stayed up all night playing. But I was like, I was mainly taking tanking, so
Okay,
yeah, I just didn't even throw those clips in here
sounds good. So let's see, we were here.
right
So
here.
yeah, we were right here. We'll just rewatch this last stat so you can see how, like,
Men.
first off, a little bit pulled back here. We might want to be like more so up here, right? This would put us near cover usage, right, where we have a lot of cover using cart in this room over here. It just put us closer to teammates, and then but besides, instead of that, we are pretty far back here, and then that's what allows Sombra to kill us pretty easily here. We also alternatively, as soon as we see her coming up there, we can start moving towards our team and get closer to cart and run around the corner. Instead, we run away from our team. So make sure we're being shot at, that we're trying to go towards our team, not away from them. As when we run away, we can't get team support, right, when we're running away. So try to stay with our team if at all possible there, so that we don't end up dying. And then of course deaths aren't going to be very good,
You're
because
not
now our
getting rid of
team
me that
doesn't have us to help them out while the fight's going on, and then they could end up losing the fight as a result.
Come here and get refreshed.
name. You're going to be okay. Heal up.
They didn't seem to do very much. All right,
You're going
everyone,
to
like,
be okay.
everyone's full. Okay, sorry, never mind. I didn't see our health bar. My bad. We're 96. I missed that. Okay, make sure we're using our nano boost. We are holding on to it for a bit here, and then that means that we're just not getting any value out of it. So we want to make sure we're actually utilizing it, because when we don't, then it's not going to do anything at all. Whereas if we win this is last fight. So not using it just means that it didn't do anything when we could have done something with it.
Yeah.
Good nade. Right, like here we could pop it on Diva, we can pop it on Doomfist, we could probably pop it on, like, honestly anybody here would be fine. Diva and Doomfist probably be the two best ones there.
Take your breath.
Still could be using Nano, still could be using Nano. Okay, there we finally used Nano there. Though it seemed as though we waited until, I don't know, were we waiting on like Doomfist's ult or something?
Yeah, we were communicating again.
Okay. So are you grouped up with this person?
No,
No.
funnily enough, like he just told me his ult was ready, and then I told him, and he's like, "Okay, understood." And then like we just did that, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Just keep in mind that we could have, honestly, like, we could have won this fight like 30 seconds ago had we just used
Right.
Nano 30 seconds ago, right? Like, I would say that yes, it is a very powerful combo to be doing that, but we also don't want to wait on it. So think, for example, like Soldier, Nano Visor is a powerful combo, but if we're winning the fight and we could be using Nano just to secure the win fast, we don't want to wait until Soldier gets his ult to actually use it, when we could just go for an okay Nano on a Doomfist, or an okay Nano on a Diva, or an okay Nano on a Zenyatta, or a okay Nano on a Orisa, right? Like those would all be pretty okay to go for even without the Doomfist ult. So we're just using it a lot earlier here to get a lot more value.
Gotcha.
Alright, and I think that is pretty much it. Yep.
Yep.
So, let's open up the next one, but before we get into this one, let's talk about strengths and weaknesses real quick. And I guess we went over the first one, I think. Yeah, okay, so then let's go over strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, what are you looking good at, what are you looking bad at? Probably say that, okay, let's start with abilities. Abilities are very inconsistent, right? Like we have a couple of times where we're landing okay ones. I think the most I saw with I think I only ever saw us anti-nading like one person at a time. I don't know if I even saw us hit two people with an anti-nade yet.
Mm.
Which just means that we want to be looking for more value out of our nades. We've seen a lot of nades hitting shields, hitting teammates, hitting just missing, or we throw it in and it hits one person, or even, in fact, we've thrown nades that, like, when they weren't even needed for healing. So
Yeah.
nades, we've hit a couple, but for the most part, needs a lot of work. And then sleeps. I probably say the success rate with nades and sleeps, to where we're hitting good ones, is looking around like a probably like a 3 or 4 out of 10, or maybe we'll go on the good side. We'll go like 4 out of 10 that we're actually landing good nades and sleeps out of all of the ones we're throwing out, which isn't the best success rate when you could be getting it up to, like, 9 out of 8, 9 out of 10, right? Would be preferable here. So in any case, right, probably would say that ability usage is looking like, probably, I'm trying to think, probably I'm trying to think whether or not I want to put it at a medium or medium high. For now, why don't we put it at a medium priority for you to work on, and then we might adjust that up or down as we see fit, or as I go through the other ones here. Ultimates so far seems pretty decent. We used it on good target. It's not like we held on to it for we didn't hold on to it for like 3 fights in a row, but we did hold on to it for a little bit. And I'd say with both of them, make sure you're just using them slightly earlier in the fight. Ults that are used first typically get more value, and the earlier in the fight you're using, it's going to get more and more value as long as the fight's actually started. So I just say the only thing with our nanos is that just using them slightly earlier. So overall, I'd say like a low to medium priority for you to work on it. Mechanics. We haven't talked about this yet, though I think we might at some point talk about when to use which type of scoping. Um, Actually, trying to think, we might go over that right after this. But when to use each type of scoping is something that needs a little bit of work. Besides that, just general mechanics looks fine, and there isn't really much else that we need to talk about with mechanics. So mechanics overall, maybe even a little bit lower than our ultimate usage, like a low to medium still though. And then moving on to positioning. Positioning we've talked a little bit on, right? Making sure we're taking off angles, make sure we're taking high grounds, make sure we're rotating between fights, making sure we're positioning with our team, making sure we're taking cover properly. So overall, that's all going at probably like a medium priority. And then finally, we have awareness, in which we have seen a lot of this stuff, right, where we don't pay attention to teammates who are low, or we're not paying attention to health bars, or we're not paying attention to our own health bar, or we don't know where the enemy team is, or enemy team players are. Or like we don't see what's happening in front of us, or we'll walk back into a fight and not see that we don't have any teammates. So this one, as well, looks like a lot of these things are grouping up around the middle, and I'm tempted to put that one at the medium. Well, we'll just set all those at the medium for now. As we go through, those will start to spread out as we see more or less of each of them. So that one as well, we'll just put at a medium priority. All of them are looking around a medium, and then we'll adjust some up or down as we see fit. Let's talk about real quick before we get into that game. Let's just talk about when to use each type of scope. I have noticed that I don't think we use our scope like probably like only 8% of the time that we're actually shooting people. It's very
I have
very
a reason.
rare. Yeah, you have a reason. What's the reason?
Okay, so like maybe a week or two ago, I was training with Isles Ducks at have you heard of him?
Yep.
Isles Ducks.
Hmm.
Yeah, I did 2 sessions with him, and he was like, "Hey," because I used to use my scope all the time, like
Hmm.
for like 90% of the fights, and I would just like do quick scopes and long scopes. And he was like, "Hey, you need to play next to your team more, and then also don't scope in all the time because it would just get you killed, and you won't see a lot of things going on around you."
Okay, so I understand. Okay, so okay, I think I understand what's going on here. So the issue there is I think you took it from one extreme and then brought it to another extreme. So when
Gotcha.
it comes to your you have basically two scopes, and you have a third that's quick scoping, right? So you have your unscoped, you have your scoped, and then you have a quick scope, right? It's mainly
Yeah.
three different types of scopes. The rate in which you're using them should look something like this, where you're using. I probably say unscoped. It comes in at like at the a little bit at the top. Probably say you're using it around like 50% of the time, and then you're going to be using scoped like 40% of the time, and then quick scoping like 10% of the time, right? That's
Mm,
roughly around the rate in which you're using them. Now, where I see the issue coming in, where you had the coaching with him, was that if you said yourself that you're using it 90% of the time, that's too much. That means that you weren't unscoping enough, because yes, I would agree, if you're scoping in 90% of the time, that is a very much a bad thing, because then you're going to, like you
yeah.
said, get killed very easily, and you're going to get shot at. Um, Now, this doesn't mean that you should be going in the exact opposite direction, which is where it looks like you took it, and now you're not scoping it at all. Which you have to keep in mind that scoping does have its value. So let's talk about when each of them are good and when you would want to use each of them. So your unscoped shots excels at close range because first off, it's a projectile, so you can't really use it at long ranges very effectively, which we'll get into in a moment. You
Mm,
it's a On top of that, you keep your mobility and you keep your visibility, right? And
yeah.
those are all the benefits of it. A scope shot, right? It turns it into an instant shot, which allows you to hit it better at a range. It
Yeah.
makes it so that you lose visibility, which can again increase accuracy at a range because now you're zooming in, right? It is going to lower your sensitivity, which will allow you to, at a range, be more accurate because it's making it so that you're able to shoot a little bit easier, right? And then you also lose mobility, which again, at a range will make it a little bit easier to hit your shots because now you're slowing it down a little bit. You're able to be a little bit more accurate. So, as you might have guessed from what I was just saying, unscoped is best at close range, scoped is best at long range. Now let's talk about the ranges in which you would use them, right? For the most part, this is gonna be rough, right? It's a little bit. It depends on the situation and what you're doing and what's happening, but for the most part, 10 meters on a squishy target, so anything that's not a tank, is going to be unscoped within this range, right? On a tank, they have a bigger hitbox, right? On a tank, they have a bigger
Yeah.
hitbox, so it means that you can go up to 15 meters on scoping, right? Because you can hit them a bit easier. And then anything past those ranges is going to be scoped in, right? Where anything past this is pretty much going to be scoped in on a squishy. Anything past this is going to be scoped in. Now, if you feel comfortable with unscopes, you can also do is you can probably push both of those back like 5 meters or so, and you should be fine. But if you're realistically, if you're unscoping from like this distance backwards, you are going to have a very, very rough time doing that, and it's going to mean that you're going to be healing people slower because they're getting their projectiles slower, and it means it's going to be more inaccurate because it's a projectile, because that's the nature of it, and you're also going to just have a bunch of trouble, so you probably want to be scoping it. Give me one moment. I have some stuff happening. I'll be right back in like 5 seconds.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So in any case, that's mainly the two different distances, right? They both have their reasons and times in which you would use each, mainly because you're going to be more accurate and being able to hit more shots at your respective distances. Now, quick scoping comes in when you are under pressure yet still need to hit a shot at a range. If you're trying to hit, I almost jumped off the map. If somebody's critical all the way over there and we're trying to unscope, that's going to be a very, very inaccurate shot. It's going to be very difficult to land it just because of how projectiles are. It's very hard to land projectiles because of you have to predict where they're going to be, and it takes travel time. They're going to get that healing slower, yada yada. Lots of different reasons why that's bad for you. Now, we typically would just scope this in, but let's say, for example, we're under pressure, so we have somebody shooting at us. We have somebody on top of us, right? And we still need to heal them. Well, now we might want to quick scope because we keep our mobility, we keep our visibility, and we're able to get the instant shot from this range, which is going to allow us to hit that shot much easier, though the disadvantage is that we have a much slower fire rate, so you're not going to want to use it all the time. You can also use this if you're pushing forwards from far away and you're trying to take space. So let's say we're walking back from spawn and our team's all the way up there, and we want to be able to hit our shot accurately while still moving forwards fast. We wouldn't want to sit there and scope because we're trying to push forwards, and we wouldn't want to unscope because it would be very inaccurate. So that's times in which you could be quick scoping, but like I said, it's not going to be incredibly often in which you're using that one. Does that all make sense in terms of when you'd be using each?
Yeah, I've got you. Thank you, because I was actually curious about that for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since I got done with those sections.
Yep, all good. All right, so then we were on Temple of Anubis.
Now entering the temple of Anubis.
All right, so we were on Limbo, so it's like 8.
You. 3, 2. Heck up and defend objective A. Watching your back. Lifting off.
Oh, watch a wall.
Block it off.
That's a decent nade just because he's being shot at by like 4 people, right? So and he's critical, so I mean that's pretty decent because you don't know if he's in super danger or not. So nothing super wrong with that.
Cover me.
I have your back.
Though let's see, what do we do with this one?
Cover me.
I have your back.
Yeah, because we go in and we check a need, like straight in the floor. I think it gets eaten. That's what happens to it. Just pay attention because I don't think that nade was super needed here. Maybe if we were pushing forwards and we decided to throw it at like these for the guys for the anti-nade. But if you're looking at all of us,
Right.
nobody here on our team needed it for healing. So just paying attention to our surroundings. We are not 12 anymore. We're 8. All right.
Patched up.
Okay, good job not, not healing him when he was full HP, though we miss our sleep again, just abilities. Honestly, now that I'm seeing it a lot, I'd probably say abilities is going up to like a medium high. We're seeing it inconsistently enough that I'd say you probably want to put that one up at the top. Make sure we're focusing in on the most at the moment, just because we end up whiffing them so frequently. That one was decent. We hit 2 teammates and an enemy, right? That one was good. Though he just did get pushed into a wall there.
Die feeling.
Okay. Okay, he does die, and we react slowly to the death, and we try to heal him with a nade after he's already dead, and then therefore it didn't do a ton. It does heal us all up, but then again, like we weren't super in need of healing when maybe this nade could have been used aggressively, and then if we used it aggressively, maybe we could have gotten a 3-mana anti-nade alternatively, especially if healing wasn't needed in that instance. So again, keep in mind when it comes to your abilities, that abilities are your carrying potential in Ana. It's how you do stuff, right? If you're just flat up healing people, that's how you do your job. That's how you exist. But if you're trying to win games and do a lot, you want to be able to land abilities. And on top of that, it's how it basically it feels really good as well when you land big abilities. So in any case, that's how you're going to be doing a lot on Ana. And so far, we're not doing a lot on Ana because we end up missing a lot of our abilities.
Gotcha.
This is not your turn. Let me get you patched up.
Alright. Now we're just waiting for our team.
Not so fast.
That's unfortunate. We got pulled to the side at the last second. Make sure, the other thing is like you see stuff like this where it's just like it's about putting thought and effort into your abilities, like because you see an ability like this where it seems as though we put like half a second's thought into the sleep, right? Where we are like where we're looking over here and it seems as though we're doing this stuff, and then all of a sudden we like just flick up and in half a second we toss it in there without even putting much thought into it. We didn't take much time to line up the shot, right? We weren't really thinking about our abilities. So let's talk about just about how to work this stuff into our gameplay, because a couple of these times I'm just saying like, okay, well, you gotta think about it better or you gotta work on it better, right? Which doesn't really seem like very concrete of how do I work on nades and sleeps. So how does one work on their nades and sleeps, or really, and it's the same way that you work on anything that you're trying to fix and work on, and that is while you're playing you want to make sure that you're putting thought and focusing on the thing you're trying to improve on. So that means that you're not going to be autopiloting, you're not just playing to play, but instead, and you're also just contrary to popular belief, you're not going to play to win, as when you play to win, you're really going to be stagnating where you never really improve. And then when you play to improve, you're going to be winning as a result because now you're getting better. Now, how your brain should look while you are focusing on your stuff is you're going to be thinking abilities. I don't say that one usually. Where you say nades. That's the one's a little easier, right? Nades. Right? Where you're just constantly thinking to yourself, I need to land my nades. I need to land my sleeps, right? And when you do that, you're going to start to notice, okay, well, now that we're thinking about our abilities a little bit more, we're starting to put a little bit more concentration into them. They're actually starting to look better, right? And then when you do that for a long enough period of time, it starts to form it as habits. And then once it forms as habits, you no longer need to put in the same effort into landing good abilities and good abilities, because of the fact that it's just a habit, right? And then after that point, you can move on to something else. Now, warning I would say is don't try to do everything at once, because if you try to do everything at once, that just gets overwhelming and you're not going to know what to do, just because it's too much. So instead, focus on one category of things or 1 to 3 smaller things, and then that's how you look to improve at the game. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so just walk in through here. Watch for the that's the thing that we do have to watch for, right? Ways that we can get around her defense matrix. We have a lot of different things that we can do to get around it, right? We can wait until she's used all of it. We can wait until she drops it, because right after she drops it, she has like a 2-second delay before she can put it back up. We can wait until she's not paying attention to us. We can wait till she's demeched or dead. We can take an off angle and get around her. We can sleep her. We can wait till our team's distracting her. Right? We have a lot of different ways that we can get around her eating, right? Whereas here we don't take any of those, none of those apply here, right? We don't take any steps to get around it, and then therefore she just eats it very easily, right? So there she used it 2 seconds ago, but then she has it again because of the fact that she used it 2 seconds ago, right? And then she flashes it up and then she eats it, and then therefore it didn't do anything. So just watch the defense matrix, make sure paying attention to it, because a lot of times when we're throwing out our abilities, we don't pay attention to the things that can actually stop them, and then therefore they get stopped a lot.
My item.
Okay, that's unfortunate. Where did
Helden sterben
he's just sitting up top?
nicht. Der Kampf
My
ist noch
item.
nicht vorbei.
There possibly, like, how long was he up there for? Trying to think.
Acknowledge.
Yeah, so he gets there right now, like right before we use our ability. So he's up there for like a good 4 seconds ish here. Just that's awareness of using our that's audio awareness of listening and keeping our ears open, listening for abilities and ultimates and footsteps and gunshots, right? Turn down your music volume if needed, up your volume if needed. But then besides that, it's just paying attention to the sounds, and then therefore we're able to know that he's there and make good decisions accordingly. Because if we know he's there, then maybe we can, maybe run in and get around the corner, or we can try to dodge him out or something like that. Whereas if we don't know he's there, then he just hits us for free with a punch and then we die. So let's see how do we use our ultimate here. Unfortunate. When it comes to dodging out Doomfist's ultimate, okay, so he does Meteor Strike. What you want to do is you want to run over to like a doorway or a corner or something of that sort. And what we're going to do is we are going to stand on one side of it. So his Meteor Strike is line of sight based. So if we get out of its line of sight, we will not take damage. So if we stand right here and wait until he slams, if he slams right here, we move to the other side. Which he'll, if we're standing still, he'll be baited to go right here. So all we have to do is just run around to the other side real quick, and then we're safe. Or vice versa, or whatever. If he goes to the other side, then we just move around the corner. So just move over to something in which we can try to get out of the way of. That's really all we can do here. You can also maybe just try to run away from it, is something else you can try to do, and like jump at the last second, which can maybe keep you alive. But besides that, we don't take countermeasures and then we die. And then let's see what we do with our nade or with our ult real quick.
Yeah, right there on that part where he slammed, I slept him beforehand. Like, just, it got really lucky. And then I woke him up because I thought my team was right there. So I kind of messed that up. Go back a little bit further.
Yeah.
Healing in hand.
Yep,
Then
just
he
make sure.
sleep.
First off, just their nade got wasted. Maybe we could have naded him too here, whereas we don't really need anything in particular. When Hog's like full HP already. Secondly, just make sure you're paying attention to your Hog, because he was looking at the Doomfist, but you shot him just too early. So typically it's a good idea to just wait until you see the other person shoot and then shoot immediately. Just wait until the Hog shoots and then shoot at him, right, in that situation. All right, so we do have to go now because we gotta go to the practice range, and now we're gonna go over the main points of the session, do a quick review mixed in there, and then wrap up the session from there. So main points of the session, I'd probably say number one was ability usage, right? We saw a lot of abilities get wasted and a lot of abilities not really connecting, right? Like I said, the success rate was maybe like a, 3 or 4 out of 10 with how many good nades we had, and then we had a couple okay, maybe like 1 or 2 okay nades mixed in there. We want to make sure we're just getting more good nades in there so we can have more value, and sleeps as well. Oh, excuse me. So just make sure we're putting more thought and effort into our nades. Make sure we're paying a very conscience. That's not how you pronounce it, but whatever, right? You paying attention to the things that can block your abilities, right? Such as shields and defense matrix and teammates and those things, right? We'll get to when we talk about positioning, but take off angles as well to get around them, right? Moving on to number 2, I'd probably say number 2 thing comes in at awareness of just paying attention to your environment and what's going on around you, as there's just a lot of things that we just didn't seem to be paying, like we didn't seem to notice, right? Like paying attention to our health bar, paying attention to our team health bars. We threw a lot of unnecessary nades at ourselves and our team when it wasn't needed because we didn't see health bars. Paying attention to where is my team, where's the enemy team, right? And paying attention to where our players at, and then paying attention to audio awareness, right? So that we don't have a Doomfist sneak up on us, and then those are all like kind of the main ones in awareness. Number 3 is going to be our positioning, making sure that we are taking high grounds, making sure that we are taking off angles and not flanks though, making sure we're using cover properly. Good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover. And then also just making sure we're sticking with our team and trying to keep a kind of a close distance to them and not being too far away from them, which is something else that, you know, IO Stux told you as well. Besides that, moving on, number 4, I'm trying to think. Probably comes in at your ultimate usage, as there wasn't a ton in mechanics we went over besides maybe just when to use your scopes, and that was pretty much it. So ultimate usage, make sure we're using it a little bit faster in fights, we're not holding on to it. You know, use it at the beginning of them, not in the middle or at the end if possible, right? Just use it a bit earlier, don't hold on to it when you're winning the fight, or when you're about to win the game, right? Just use it because there's no reason not to, right? You're gonna win anyways if you use it. And then besides that, last one is going to be your scope versus unscope, right? Where you unscope at close ranges, right? 10 to 15 meters ish, and then you scope past that, where it's within 10 15 and then past 10 to 15, right, is when you're scoping. And then you quick scope when you're under pressure, yet still need to shoot at a distance. And then those are all the main things, right, that we talked about. Do you have any questions about anything we've talked about?
No, not really.
All right. Well, then why don't we let me stop the recording.